after I left the cult and I began my research, I met this guy in the post office, and he looked at me and said, "You're John Collins." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So you're speaking out against William Branham." And I thought, oh no, it's another one of those people. And he said, "Well, I commend you for standing up for what you believe in." And I said, I was shocked. I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, it really doesn't matter what you say." And I thought, oh no, he's going to spark an argument. And he says, and he shocked me. He said, "Because Jesus Christ has came and gone. We're now living in the days post-Jesus." And I was, what? I had no idea that there were people that believe this. And he said, "Yeah, I was there in Shreveport whenever I watched him heal people, and there can only be Jesus Christ who can do the things that he did. So we saw Jesus come and go."
I think I know exactly who you're talking about, and the same man I met in the post office one time said, "It's a beautiful day Brother Branham's given us today, isn't it?" You know,
Yes.
I think we're talking about the same person. They're out there. There are people who pray and baptize in the name of William Branham.
There's actually a lot of them here in Jeffersonville. There's this whole group of people that meet in private and discuss that God came through William Branham.
Yeah, there's we could talk a lot about that. That might be worth a full episode at some point, John. So, you know, like you mentioned, the groups take this in different ways. Somehow manifested sons of God leads to God manifested somehow in the church, in a person, in something, and everybody's got their own unique spin on how this happened or how it will happen, right? But the basic concept that it would happen in some form or another, I mean, the whole message believes it. It is baked deeply, deeply into message thinking. Manifested Sons of God is baked right into the core of message beliefs. And, you know, William Branham, like I said, preached a lot of things on that topic. And, you know, John, I think one of the strangest things looking back, John, that I think... I mean, we believed William Branham did indeed get the power to speak things into existence, right? We believe that. And William Branham told us that. And there's a meme you've got to put on. Okay, before we show this, if you are drinking something, swallow it. Okay, before you put this on the screen, John. But in the message, we believed that William Branham spoke squirrels into existence.
I will never forget, as I was deprogramming, it actually took me a while to remove that from my head, the fact that I believed fully that he could create squirrels. And there was a period of time which, as you're deprogramming, everything's funny. You look back at what you believed, and it's just so absurd that it becomes funny. And I made this meme, and it says, "Yes, I too believe that a man from Indiana could speak squirrels into existence."
I bust out laughing every time I see that, John, because it's so true. And we did believe it. Oh my goodness. We did believe that a man from Indiana spoke squirrels into existence. And you know, some people... So I just believed he spoke some squirrels into existence, John, but I have met people in the message who believe that William Branham spoke all squirrels into existence.
Wow.
Like he was the creator of squirrels in total. Like there were no squirrels before William Branham spoke them into existence. I have met some people in the message that actually believe that, John. It's something else. But yeah, we believe William Branham had the ability to speak things, including squirrels, into existence. And William Branham told us that he did. And there are people who claim to be witnesses to it, right? And so that's where it gets weird, because, you know, some of the same people that tell us, you know, they witnessed William Branham speaking squirrels into existence, you know, are, you know, tell all kinds of stuff. And so you're left wondering, I mean...
What do you believe?
Did William Branham really speak squirrels into existence?
And you know, if you listen to his sermons, he's got these sermons like, with even the title, Speak to the Rock. He is telling you that you can do these things too. And he uses that phrase, "ye are gods," when he does it. I grew up in this this very sorcery type of world where I believe that if I lost my keys, I would speak and the keys would show up, because I was so indoctrinated with this manifested sons of God theology that he gave, that he told me to speak, and so I spoke, And by golly, if I found my keys, it was because I spoke them into being able to be found.
Yeah, it's positive confession and word of faith is one of the things that feed into all of this, right? And we need to do a full episode on that too. But that is just one component of the overall manifested sons of God theology. This whole thing turns into a complete package when you add it all up. It's basically a roadmap for people to become like Jesus, and not just like they love like Jesus and they're nice like Jesus and they're kind like Jesus, but they can speak things into existence like Jesus, right? That's some of them go all the way to that level. Some dial it down, right? Some dial it down and it's okay, I'm going to be X percentage like Jesus, but some go the full, I'm going to be 100% like Jesus, right? And so it's
the Hobbit religion, but instead of finding the ring, everybody gets to be Gandalf.
Yeah. And that's where groups vary in this, right? A lot of groups vary in just how far being like Jesus means, like how that's one big difference in how it takes. And another group, so like some of the movements that come out, they kind of abandon a big chunk of the becoming like God part, but they keep the fivefold ministry parts, they keep some of the other framework around it. But the whole thing came out of Latter Rain as a package to get you to manifested sons of God. Just some parts of it stuck more than others in different groups.
Yeah, one of our partners, if you go to the website and you go to the partners page, you'll see NAR connections. And there are researchers who are now exploring all of the connections back to the foundation of what is today the New Apostolic Reformation. And surprisingly to them, unsurprisingly to me, they're finding that William Branham's doctrines that were introduced in these post-World War II healing revivals become literally the foundation for several different movements, splinter groups, sects, cults. Basically, it is a wide variety of belief systems that literally would not exist had William Branham not popularized some of these very, very heretical theologies.
Yeah, as I said before, I think in the last episode, I just want to, re-add this, I still, again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be like Jesus, right? I mean, that is Christianity 101, right? But what do you mean when you say that, right? That's important, right? And when you say that in the framework of Latter Rain, manifested sons of God theology, it means an entirely different thing than in the framework of more normative Christianity. So, being like Jesus, that's a good thing. Having a good preachers and a good ministry and a healthy church, that's a good thing. Having basically, the basic premise of fivefold ministry concepts, the basic premises of being like Jesus, I think are good, healthy things in Christianity. But Latter Rain does something with it that, again, clearly goes in a direction that produces all kinds of hurts and problems and abuses,
Yeah, there's a real problem with this, and I'm sure you're somewhat new out of the message. You'll experience this the further we go, but the Latter Rain movement itself, from its inception, was built on top of the doctrines of Dowie. You had F.F. Bosworth, Gordon Lindsay, who were out of the Dowie cult. Dowie's theology was built on the premise that the church had become apostate. And so he speaks very, very harsh condemnations against all Christian churches so that he can suck people out of those churches into his own cult. Then William Branham comes, he does the same thing. So what you end up with is this. You've got a minister who is speaking very, very, very bad things about people. And he's manipulating his members to do the same thing. So all of the good aspects of Jesus, when you say I want to become more like Jesus, you're talking about peace, love. Jesus said the greatest two commandments, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. They fully abandoned the love your neighbor as yourself part. And instead, what they want to do is become the power of God. They want to become the sorcerer of God. They want to speak things into existence and harshly condemn their neighbors, harshly judge their neighbors, harshly rebuke their neighbors. And again, you'll find this the more as you go, but the leaders of this movement, instead of trying to love the people who question the movement, they sever them. And then after they leave, instead of trying to pull them back, they scold them, they rebuke them. They are literally doing the opposite of what Jesus would be, except for they want this ability to speak to the rock.
Yeah, these groups go in very interesting ways with this, and a lot of them degenerate into something that really no longer even resembles Christianity anymore. I think that's perfectly fair. I mean, like when you look at like the most extreme groups, like People's Temple. People's Temple was started as a latter rain church. When you look at the way some of these most extreme groups coming out of latter rain went, I mean, it's not even Christianity anymore. I mean, it is something entirely different, right? And you get shades worse and shades better, and it all takes so many different twists and turns, and I'm careful not to paint with too broad of a brush. Because I do believe there are some people in there who are really genuine people, and they're really looking for some kind of genuine experience with God, and they're trying their best, but they've just been presented a framework that is problematic, that they're not able to see through for some reason. And ends up leading them to really not be like Jesus, right? Like it doesn't produce Christ-likeness in many people. It produces abuse. I mean, that's just pure and simple. Instead of creating people like Jesus, which is what the whole thing is about, it ended up creating people that really feeding the ego of people that love power. That's really what